I just want to quickly point out, if you look at the back of your program for today, Maestro Anstett is me. So another benefit of donating to this project or to the library district in general through the foundation is that you can select whatever you want. So for a while I was an undersheriff, for a while I was a cantor, so you can choose your own title. I was telling Dave Mason a few minutes ago, I've never selected a military level just because I don't want to be arrested. But, so donate and come up with a hoax title for yourself. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here today, and I guess I'm sort of taking over as MC a little bit, so you're going to get more of me than you ever wanted. I'm going to read briefly 3 poems that all have some connection to this region. And the first is by Emily Dickinson. She never visited here, but she kept up a long correspondence, which was documented by a book that was produced by the library district some time ago. She kept up a long correspondence with Helen Hunt Jackson. And this poem by her is one of my wife's favorites. It's about the things that can obsess us and frighten us, including ourselves. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a house. The brain has corridors surpassing material place. Far safer of a midnight meeting external ghost than its interior confronting that cooler host. Far safer through an abbey gallop, the stones a chase, than unarmed oneself encounter in lonesome place. Ourself behind ourself concealed should startle most. Assassin hid in our apartments, be horrors least. The body borrows a revolver, he bolts the door, overlooking a superior specter or more. And this next poem, and I have to confess, I've had this book for 4 years. Jim Chiletti gave me this book 4 years ago. I don't think to keep. It's sitting on the shelf, and I pick it up on occasion, and maybe Bryce could have it. Maybe this could be an honorific that goes with the guitar. This is it Bergens or Bergens? Nellie Bergen Miller, who was a resident of Colorado Springs, who was the state poet laureate a number of years ago. This book appeared in 1936. And I will read a poem from here, but I also, just this morning, was looking through it again, and there's a little squib here. As editor and reviewer, she has insisted upon wholesome, normal interpretations of life. That's quite the challenge, wholesome and normal interpretations of life. And here's a poem about writing. Weariness. All the morning I have been playing with fragile words, stringing them on silken threads of thought, threading them to and fro as the juggler tosses his balls, until they gleamed like interlacing strands of flame. Now, in weariness, I let them fall, and they shatter in 1,000 tinkling fragments, glittering and worthless upon the floor. My head droops drowsily upon my empty hands. The scent of sun-drenched pines drifts through the open door. Let them lie where they fell. Today, I shall write no more. Lovely poem. She's a very fine poet. And I'm not going to read this entire poem, but there's this really interesting poet, Kenward Elmsley, who was born in Colorado Springs a long time ago, a poet, a librettist. He's still alive. He was born here, grew up here. Really interesting sensibility. His poems are kind of like, they're like Busby Berkeley musicals. They're just really kaleidoscopic. I won't read this whole thing, but here's the last couple stanzas of this poem called Japanese City. The room clerk's page shines up through the transparent floor. Soon the sin couples will start arriving, and the one-way mirror teams and the government professionals with their portable amulets, shiny vinyl instruments that probe and stretch. Much visiting back and forth, pink blobs, revels and surveys. Many olive eyes will close in a sleep of exhaustion. More ice water. The celebrants in metal regalia jingle and tinkle, moving past the red-roofed villas of the generals, past the cubicles of the nakeds and into the harbor, past the glum stone busts of the generals sitting in the water. Out they go, Jim, etc., into the sweet, empty city, leaving behind the red, odd numbers untouched, pleasure beaches, monsoons, and sun. So, yeah, a gentleman born here, born and raised in Colorado Springs. So, yeah, a lot of poetry, long history of poetry taught to this community, and an ongoing history of poetry taught in this community. I'm going to introduce our next couple speakers, and then we'll bring up our beautiful Jim Chiletti has been a wonderful poet laureate for the past 2 years. I thought I made a lot of appearances. He made a ton of appearances. He's continued on the Poetry Body Weight project. He's gone into people's homes and held poetry salons. I'm sure you can talk about that a bit more now. I'll bet he's still willing to do that. He has continued his prison writing workshop, his prison outreach, and I hope I'm not telling too much on you if I mention that one of Jim's students just won the Pan American Prison Writing Award, first place in fiction, which is phenomenal. Jim was doing before he was named to this position, and the work that I'm sure he'll continue doing on afterward. But it's been a real pleasure to work with Jim these last 2 years. And let's, before we bring him up, give him another round of applause for his significant
John Atkinson taught me a little trick that when I get choked up with emotion to drink something. But if I tried to drink something at that point, it would go everywhere. So I had to pretend like I'm drinking something. Anyhow, Nellie Birgit Miller's husband was Dr. Miller at the Cancer Pavilion in Penrose Hospital a number of years ago. And she was Poet Laureate from 1925 to 1952. Wow. I had the privilege of curating her library when her second daughter passed away. And the Pioneers Museum has files of her papers now and about 100 books that poets had given her. You can imagine my thrill when I walked into her home at 20 West Washington and the wall of poetry was twice as big as the screen. And they were trying to buy. I said, whoever bids on this, I'll double the price. And that's how I bought her library and then gave a lot to the museum. But anyhow, my point is that we have a lot of wonderful talent in this community, in the Poet Laureate Project, in the Pikes Peak Library District, and the partners are bringing that to fruition and to blossom. A few years ago, a previous library director said, we don't do programs, we do books. Well, I'm very grateful to Paula Miller, who is a poet, but also tremendous in nurturing and fostering programs that develop the culture and the humanity in our community. The highlights of my service as Poet Laureate. Poetry, like love, opens the heart. When I teach poetry to children, I tell them that poetry is how our heart feelings talk with emotional knowledge. And we share those words with family, friends, and others. And when we read and share poems by people all over the world, we join in the common bond of humanity with people all over the world. Some of the highlights of my tenure include working with teachers and students in numerous schools. After my visit to Stratton Elementary, a 4th grade student, Tori Ann, wrote, "Mr. Jim, when you walked in, I said, this will be boring." The next day we had a debrief when Mr. Hoffner said, "You liked us." I said, "I enjoyed him more." You are a very creative poet, and it was so sad when you left. Please come back soon. And I did last week. And to me, as Poet Laureate, if I can touch someone like that, to go from boring to come back soon, that's my mission. In response to an exercise I call a copycat poem, I gave the students the E.E. Cummings poem, "In Just Spring," on this side of the page, and lines on this side of the page. And I said, you can only use his first 2 words, "in just," and write your own seasonal poem. And Gianna wrote, "In just winter, when my yard is snowy and icy and the hot chocolate man sings with a deep voice and my sister and I come running from hard work, and when the world is slippery and Jane and Nancy come running from picking berries all fall, and the hot chocolate man sings so deeply." 4th grade. Another highlight, editing the Poetry While You Wait book. There's a lot of these here today. This was originally the brainchild of Aaron, and it has been a wonderful way for poets and regular people in the community to write and get their poetry published and get it back out there. So your job today is to take 2 or 3 copies and put it in the tire store, the dentist office, the doctor's office, wherever you go, coffee shops, etc. Take 2 or 3 copies and get them distributed, please. And if you have a poem in the book, take an extra copy to keep for yourself. As Aaron mentioned, the second great highlight was when we received the announcement 2 weeks ago that Scott won first place in the Pan American Fiction Writing Contest. And after I announced that, I sent out a call, and answering my call to give the men a hand up, Aaron secured from a co-worker a word processing computer, which till now they were not allowed to have. And so the men can prepare and send out their work as professional manuscripts. Enjoying poetry in the homes of many, making house calls, and I'm still open to making house calls. If you'd like me to come and do a little poetry event in your house, I insist on chocolate cake, wine, and cheese. And everybody you invite has to bring a poem to share in that salon. A great event here, April 2nd, was the Poetry International. Here in the Carnegie Room, 20 people, many of them who were in Poetry While You Wait, included poems in English, German, French, Hebrew, Chinese, and Italian. When celebrated, poetry is the international language of the heart. And our second international poetry event will be at Imagination Place, Citadel Mall, from 1 to 3 next Saturday, April 28th, and I will start with a 3-hour prompt workshop. I'll share with you one poem before I go further. Italian omelets. I encourage everybody, including young students, especially young students, to talk to their grandparents, etc., and learn more about their heritage and write about that. Italian omelets. Scramble the eggs in this green bowl into the whirlpool. Clattering fork, the aroma of sweet peppers frying as they did in my grandmother's kitchen on a green and wooded hillside in Greci near Paeto, Foggia, Italy. Turn up the heat until the peppers sizzle, fork one out and dog it on the towel. Your mouth waters, taste the Italian sun. Now the eggs whipped, tip the bowl over the skillet, watch the yellow water fall, crackling into the hot oil, sounding of the ocean in a shell near the beach along the Adriatic where my great-great-grandmothers crossed over from Albania. I hear our voices in the eggs in their bellies. Oh, I love to stir the scrambled eggs into the sweet red and green fried peppers and watch them bubble and cook into a fluffy cloud. To America, Grandfather Orest said. Me too, said Grandmother Bruno. A frittata, my father, Leonard, said. Me too, I say. Mangiamo, let's eat. Third and most dear to my heart, the mother of Tristan Hirschberger called me to ask permission for him to attend my up-and-coming workshop at Eagle View Middle School this coming Tuesday. Because, as she said, poets are his heroes. His poem is included in the Poetry While You Wait booklet. I encourage you to read it. In closing, to all of you, and especially to you, Price, your talent and exuberance will be thoroughly enjoyed by this community. You would do a great job. And all of you that support the Poet Laureate Project. Price will be our ambassador, and he will carry your love for the word to the community. And as we all share in this, right now, adrenalized and winning moment, I close with a swish to celebrate all of you. You all know what a swish shot is in a basketball game. Well, this is my version of a swish shot. Because you know how it feels when the ball's in your hands and you've got 5 seconds, no 3, 2, and you fly the ball into the air with the buzzer buzzing and swish, you score, yeah, high five. It's like when mom and dad drove you to the used car lot and you bought your first used car.